Hey everyone, this episode isn't going to be quite the same as our normal episodes. No dad jokes, no puns today, as pretty much everyone knows the situation in Ukraine is tense with the Russian invasion. The violence is unquestionably wrong, and the war is all motivated by a tyrant hell-bent on the destruction for personal gain. But gamers and game developers around the world are banding together in support of the people of Ukraine and doing what they can do to support and defend the people of the country and its capital, Kyiv, from the indiscriminate violence. Now, you may be saying, Robey, why'd you call it Kyiv versus Kiev? Kyiv is actually the Ukrainian pronouncement of it. Kiev is the Russian. So when I'm talking about Kyiv and Kiev are the same thing. It's just worth noting. This is going to be a heavy episode, but it needs to be told to show just how much the gaming industry cares for people around the world. As gunfire, missiles, and tanks attempt to make their way through the streets and skies of Kyiv and surrounding areas, game developers and in turn gamers have poured out tons of support for Ukraine and its people through various charities, donations, and non-profit support around the world. We'll get to the big donations and support from larger communities, but first, Ukraine is home to quite a few game development studios. Vostok Games, which based in Kyiv, whose works include Survivorium, Fear the Wolves, and was recently hiring to do work on a AAA shooter game, tweeted, "Ukraine needs help from global communities. Please help spread awareness, appeal to your government officials, donate to help our military, a retweet, any action you can helps." 4A Games, who worked on the Metro game series, and let's be honest, one of those game benchmarks we use all the time on Robeytech. They said, "There are simply no words to convey the horrors that happen in Ukraine at this very moment, in the country that is home to many of us. None of us ever thought that the world of the 21st century can get to the borderline beyond which our game scenarios start resembling reality." So, for those of you who don't know, Metro Exodus is a post-apocalyptic game where nuclear holocaust is essentially happening and everybody is hiding in the subways and underground parts of what was the USSR at the time. And now when you see what's going on in Kyiv with everybody going down into the underground to protect themselves in the shelters, you can see where 4A might say something like this and just beyond comprehension that something like this is happening right now. Frogwares, a developer of the Sherlock Holmes and the Sinking City, said, "We can't just stand by. Russia attacks our homeland and denies the sovereignty of Ukraine. We are trying to stay safe, but this is a war. There are no two ways about it. We call on everyone to force Putin to withdraw from our lands." These are all companies and games staffed by real human beings in the country that has done nothing hostile since it's gained its independence. Yes, game development is being disrupted, but this pales in comparison to the fact that these people, their families, their homes, and everything they hold dear are now under fire where anything can happen in any instant. Support has been pouring in from developers in neighboring countries. Poland is home to another game development hub. 11-bit Studios, makers of This War of Mine, are donating all profits from their game, its DLC, across all platforms to the Ukrainian Red Cross for the week after the attacks commenced. And 11-bit wasn't alone with donating profits from their games. All In Games and their partners, the Farm 51 and Studio Polyamorous, shared this viewpoint. The Farm 51 had been working on a game called Chernobylite, and areas that they had visited while working on the title were now being invaded by Russian soldiers. They are also donating a week's worth of proceeds to the Ukrainian Red Cross. A little farther away in Switzerland, independent game developer Hinterland Games, maker of The Long Dark, is donating 125,000 Canadian to the Ukrainian Red Cross in an effort to support emergency services and first aid, as well as food, clothing, and shelter to all of those affected by the attacks, reminding their players that even the children are victims in this unprovoked violence. Another well-known game studio, Projekt Red, developers of the Witcher game series and of course Cyberpunk 2077, seek to support their name and country and its people by donating 1 million PLN, equal to about $238,000 US, to the PAH, a Poland-based humanitarian organization. Bungie, original creator of the Halo franchise and Destiny, had their own charity organization, Bungie Foundation. They had a Game to Give campaign that was about to be underway as the attacks commenced. This $121,000 that they raised in the first 24 hours were going to be donated equally to 3 organizations they work with: Voices of Children, Direct Relief, and the International Rescue Committee. Ubisoft is providing relief and assistance to their Ukrainian employees to help them relocate, stay safe, and recover from the effects of war, though no donations have been mentioned as of the writing of this episode. But it's not just big developers donating profits and doing what they can. The solo developer of Slipways, aka Beetlewing, is also dedicating profits of their game for a week, which was followed up by GOG, who chimed in to say that they would also be donating their share of the Slipway sales on their site to the Ukrainian Red Cross also. As you can see, there are game developers all around the world, and some directly affected by the senseless war. Ukraine and the surrounding countries have been pivotal in the development of some of our favorite games, and to see them hurt and scared breaks our hearts. One thing you can count on, though, is that gamers and game developers can raise money for charity and humanitarian efforts, because at its core, gaming is about people, period. And it's not just game developers that are taking a stand and showing their support. Big tech companies like AMD and Intel have announced that they will comply with the ban on selling processors to Russia when the ban takes effect on March 3rd. Though to be clear, the ban doesn't apply to consumer communication devices like PCs, phones, and more, but rather bans the sales of import of processors for industrial use by private companies, government entities, and any other group outlined in the recent US sanctions. Apple is in a similar situation, cutting off online sales and exports to Russia. Along with cutting off sales and exports, they're limiting Apple Pay within the country, disabling some features of Apple Maps within the Ukraine, and are removing the ability of the Russian news apps outside of Russia. This garnered some criticism for not cutting off the App Store access entirely to the people of Russia, but Apple did state that they do need to keep the use of Apple phones and products available to the people of Russia. From reporters and war correspondents in the field, to allowing anti-war protesters to organize, and for the people of Russia to stay informed of what is actually going on. And realistically, an outright ban from everything would result in anti-war movements to use devices that cannot be trusted, that were manufactured either in Russia or by companies that are much less secure than Apple. Also, it's important to say that, like Linus, like any of the other YouTubers that are out there, if there are organizations that we are supporting, we will also be working to make sure that we are doing our diligence to support any of the sanctions or not supporting Russian-backed organizations with our stuff, and not that we know of, but again, it's important for us to say that we are going to be doing that, and if you guys catch us or see something that we're doing that's wrong, please let us know so we can correct our ways. That is it for today's episode of Robeytech. Now, normally we'd go on about liking and subscribing and all of that and social media, but today that doesn't feel like the right thing to do. So all we're going to say is be safe out there. Hug your family and loved ones, and if you are able to support humanitarian efforts over in Ukraine, we've got some links down in the description below. Anyway, guys, please be safe, and we'll see you on the next one.